Hello everyone, I'm Nizzahon here for the Aether Hub, and we have a special top 10 plan today, the top 10 cats. And this is my cat here, Tuki, so she thought she belonged on the list, but she didn't quite make it. But the point here is that Seiben and I are doing interrelated videos again this week, something we haven't done for several weeks. We're both doing cat videos. Seiben's going to look at the lore of cats in Magic the Gathering, and I'm going to look at the top 10 cats in Magic's history. Cats have recently become much more prominent in Magic as a result of the new set, Amonkhet, which has a cat lord in it and several other cat creatures running around. And cats actually are more prevalent than you'd think in Magic, as you'll see from Seiben's lore video. There are cat people on lots of planes. There are also cats that are more wild cats around on most planes. They are mostly associated with green and white, but they appear across many colors. I think there's been a cat in every color except for blue, probably. And so let's go ahead and get started looking at the top 10 cats in Magic's history. I'll remind you real quick how I score these videos. Cards on this list receive points depending on how many Grand Prix or Pro Tour top 8s they've received, with a Pro Tour top 8 worth twice as much as a Grand Prix top 8. The cards in this list are arranged numbers 10 through 1, with the highest score being found at number 1. Legacy and Vintage Championships are scored as Pro Tour top 8s as they represent the highest level of play in those particular formats, despite not actually being Pro Tours, and I wanted those formats to be represented on this list more effectively. At number 10, we have Philidor Guardian, a relative newcomer to Magic. After this cat was spoiled in Aether Revolt, people quickly realized that in conjunction with the Planeswalker Saheeli Rai, it was possible to create an instant win combo that created infinite tokens of Philidor Guardian on turn 4. Since then, it has appeared in various decks, obviously in the Jeskai colors, that attempt to win with this combo. Some are more control-oriented, and others are more all-in on the combo, but since it came out just a few months ago, Philidor Guardian has already amassed 13 Grand Prix top 8s, and it is likely to add more high finishes to its resume, as it is still in Standard and will be with Saheeli for a long time. At number 9, we have Leviathan Arbiter. The Arbiter's ability is a nuisance to players across multiple formats since it makes fetch lands and other tutors really bad. It had some success in Standard first, appearing in the Fauna Quest deck, which ran Fauna Shaman, which itself could tutor, so it was a good card to find in the Mirror match. It also made appearances in more traditional white weenie decks as well. It has also had success in modern Hate Bear decks, where it shuts down fetch lands and is comboed viciously with cards like Path to Exile and Ghost Quarter, taking away the ability of your opponent to search for a land after you use those. It continues to see play in Modern, having put up a Grand Prix top 8 as recently as February of 2017, and it's not likely to stop anytime soon. At number 8, we have Phantom Shobha. I realize it doesn't say cat here, but all of the Nishobas have been errated to be cat beasts, and this one is actually a cat beast spirit because of the fact that it was originally a beast spirit. Phantom Shobha is obviously a really strong creature, but 7 mana is a lot for competitive play, even back then, and basically his entire record is based on decks that tried to cheat him into play. This included Reanimator decks and decks built around Hunting Ground, an enchantment that allowed you to put a creature into play for free anytime your opponent played a spell, providing you had reached Threshold, which meant you had 7 or more cards in your graveyard. He picked up a Grand Prix top 8 and a Worlds top 8 in Standard, 1 in Hunting Grounds and 1 in a Reanimator deck. In Extended, he had the most success though, appearing primarily in Reanimator decks, putting up 3 top 8s at Pro Tour Houston in 2002, and a top 8 at Worlds in 2003 as well, along with several Grand Prix top 8s. However, it only had success from 2002 to 2003 and was soon displaced by other creatures people wanted to cheat into play, like Akroma, Angel of Wrath. At number 7, we have Raksasa Death Dealer, who actually made an appearance on the MTG Top 10 before in the very first video I did for the Aether Hub, Top 10 Demons. Funnily enough, it placed higher on the demon list. If someone had asked me, I would have assumed demons have collectively done more in Magic's history than cats, but I guess I would be wrong. Raksasa Death Dealer is an efficient 2-drop, and it benefited from the fact that it was playable in Abzan decks, which were the dominant deck in Standard for basically as long as Siege Rhino was legal there. The Death Dealer honestly wasn't even the best 2-drop in that deck. I think Fleecemane Lion, a fellow cat, spoiler alert, was probably that, but hey, the deck needed another 2-drop, and the Death Dealer could do a lot of work despite being a 2-drop. All but 2 of its top 8s were in Abzan decks, and the other 2 were in Sultai decks. But really, this cat demon rode the coattails of Siege Rhino, and if Abzan hadn't been a deck, I don't think the Death Dealer would have found such a successful home. It has never seen play anywhere outside of Standard, and I don't think it will. At number 6, we have Brim, King of Oreskos. A cat himself, and one who makes even more cats, this guy is obviously incredible and was a very pushed mythic rare for aggro decks. In Theros Block Constructed, he picked up 2 Pro Tour top 8s in 2014, and in Standard he showed up in both control and aggro decks. Not something that a 3-drop creature is always capable of, but the sheer power level of Brimaz, along with the fact that he brought so much value by giving you all these free cat tokens, made him a good card in control decks too. In Standard, he appeared in Orzhov control and blue-white control, but by the end of 2014, he transitioned into exclusively being in aggressive or mid-range decks, including Abzan, alongside fellow cats, Raksasa Death Dealer, and Fleecemane Lion, probably the most cat-heavy, successful deck there's ever been. It also has appeared in Boros, aggro decks, and white weenie decks, and so forth. Brim has also managed to sneak in a modern Grand Prix top 8 back at Grand Prix Pittsburgh in 2015, where he showed up in a Hate Bear deck, and in 2016 he found his way into a Legacy Death and Taxes deck, which is basically the Legacy version of Hate Bear. But he's only managed one Grand Prix in that format too. Still, his power level and track record indicate he could go on a run in Modern or Legacy if the metagame shifts the right way, so he may not be done just yet. At number 5, we have Savannah Lions, which is basically the OG cat creature, though as you can see on this alpha version of it, it actually used to say lions. It has since been errata to become a cat, which makes sense. Savannah Lions doesn't seem like much to us today, where we get 1-drop 2/1s that have upside at rarities below rare, but in his day, Savannah Lions was really the only 1-mana 2/1 there was, and his very existence, along with other efficient white creatures, led to one of the most enduring deck archetypes in Magic's history, white weenies. The Lions have since been reprinted and had another run through Standard in the mid-2000s. Its first time in Standard, it managed to pick up 2 top 8s at Worlds in 1996, but surprisingly never did much more than that. Its second time through Standard, it was actually still a very efficient creature, even though it was 10 years later, and it put up 2 top 8s at Pro Tour Honolulu, and 2 at Worlds in 2006. No longer relegated to mostly mono-white decks, Savannah Lions is now part of Zoo decks that ran multiple colors to play the most effective creatures there were, as well as Boros aggro decks. The Lions were also good enough for Extended, putting up Pro Tour top 8s in 1997 and 1998, and making another run through Extended in Zoo decks as well in the mid-2000s. He even managed one Legacy top 8 in 2005. Since 2007, Savannah Lions hasn't seen any play, despite being legal in Modern, because it has been outclassed by the power creep that has resulted in better 1-mana creatures, many of them being larger or as large as Savannah Lion with more upside, and that is a normal thing in Magic now, and that means Savannah Lions has unfortunately been displaced. Still, it has its place in Magic's history as one of the most aggressive creatures ever printed. At number 4, we have Steppe Lynx, which is a good place to transition to after looking at Savannah Lions, because this 1-drop is way more powerful than the Lions, especially in a world of tons of fetch lands where it is regularly swinging as a 4/5 on turn 2. That makes Savannah Lions look pretty sad. Steppe Lynx was one of the best aggro creatures in Standard when it was around, and was a crucial aspect of the Boros landfall decks that were basically the best aggro deck in Zendikar Standard. It also saw play in Extended in various aggressive Zoo and white weenie decks, just like its progenitor, Savannah Lions. Extended ended in 2011, but Steppe Lynx's power level allowed it to transition to Modern 2, where in its early days it showed up in Boros aggro decks, and more recently has found a home in Death Shadow Zoo decks, which run a ton of fetch lands and thus can swing with this as a 4/5 pretty regularly. Even in Legacy it has proven to be potent, putting up a Grand Prix and Legacy Championship back in 2011. With Death Shadow Zoo continuing to be a Tier 1 deck in Modern, Steppe Lynx is likely to continue to accrue top 8s, but I'm not sure we'll ever catch the top 3 on this list. At number 3, we have Wild Nicole. Basically a 1-mana 3/3 in the decks that play it. This really makes Savannah Lions look bad. It didn't actually see much play in Standard, mostly because there weren't a lot of easy ways to get these 3 land types in play, but it did have some success there, mostly in aggro decks that happened to be playing these 3 colors. It saw play pretty quickly in Legacy and Extended though, where there were fetch lands and lands with dual land types, appearing in a variety of aggro decks, most of which calling themselves Zoo of one kind or another, or in burn decks. Eventually, Extended ceased to exist and was replaced by the non-rotating Modern format. At Worlds in 2011, Wizards realized that Nicole might be a problem for Modern when over a dozen pros out of the 36 pro field at Worlds all played Modern Zoo decks with the Nicole at the center. They preemptively banned the card before it could see a lot of Grand Prix or Pro Tour play in Modern, and only picked up 1 Pro Tour top 8 before it got banned. It remained banned between 2011 and 2014, but eventually got unbanned, and has predictably seen a lot of play since then, being a key card in the various aggro decks despite the actual decks changing over time. This has included Zoo decks, Naya burn decks, and Death Shadow Zoo decks. It continues to be a regular fixture on the Modern Grand Prix scene, so it is likely to continue to pick up points. At number 2, we have Fleecemane Lion. Talk about power creep. I remember back in the day, in Ravnica, when they printed Watchwolf as a 2-mana 3/3, everyone lost their minds, and a decade later they printed Fleecemane Lion, which is just a strictly better Watchwolf. You still get a 2-mana 3/3, but you also get a creature that can become monstrous for 5 mana, making it a 4/4 indestructible creature with hexproof. Those 2 words together make the Lion one of the hardest creatures to kill in all of Magic, Only sacrifice effects and board sweeping effects of -4, -4, or greater can take it down. The Lion was great because you could just play a huge efficient creature for 2, and in the later part of the game it becomes an even bigger problem for your opponent. Fleecemane Lion first saw play in Theros Block Constructed and Pro Tour Journey into Nyx, which incidentally was also the last Block Constructed Pro Tour ever. He got Pro Tour top 8s in that format in a Constellation deck and a Junk deck, which was basically just a good stuff deck. He saw a ton of play in Standard too, though. In the beginning of its time in Standard, it was in all manner of aggro decks that happened to be running green-white, and it was the best 2-drop in the deck. This included Naya aggro and Selesnya aggro primarily, and after the printing of Siege Rhino and Anafenza led to the creation of Abzan decks, Fleecemane Lion was a nice fit for that deck too. So unlike some cards that end up losing ground when the metagame changes with the printing of a new set, Fleecemane Lion just kept on rolling. The Lion has never seen play outside of Blocker Standard and is unlikely that it ever will, so while it has a big lead over Wild Nicole and Steppe Lynx, that lead is only shrinking, not growing. And the number 1 cat on this list is Qasali Pridemage. A 2-mana 2/2 with the powerful Exalt mechanic, the Pridemage also benefits from being a creature that can easily be run or sided into any aggro deck while also providing utility against artifacts and enchantments. It saw some play in Standard and a bit of play in Extended before the format was axed, but it has found the most success in Modern in a variety of decks. It was first most successful in Zoo decks, but then Birthing Pod was printed, and it became a fixture in that deck. A deck that could basically tutor for any creature it wanted to, because in addition to being a powerful aggro creature, it had utility against decks like Affinity. That meant it was a good utility creature to have. Eventually, Birthing Pod got banned out of Modern, but decks running Collected Company, while they don't quite tutor, they get pretty close, and Court of Calling, which does in fact tutor, has since started running the Pridemage, who just picked up 2 Grand Prix just this month at Grand Prix San Antonio. It has had similar success in Legacy, where its ability to blow up artifacts is perhaps even more powerful. There it has appeared primarily in aggro decks that don't run toolboxes though, and it hasn't seen play there since 2014. So basically though, the Pridemage has seen consistent play since it was printed in 2009, and as a result it holds a pretty strong position as the number 1 cat on this list, unlikely to be approached by any of the cats behind it as it continues to see play. So that does it for this top 10 video. Thank you for watching it. If you want to make sure you catch more of my top 10s, don't forget to subscribe here to the Aether Hub, where you can find a bunch of other great content as well. You can also find more of my top 10s over on my own channel.